We're here to witness one of the most epic rivalries of all time. It's not Tupac versus Biggie or Batman versus Superman. It's the Honda Accord versus Toyota Camry! These cars have been duking it out for family sedan supremacy since before you were even born, and both of them have been completely overhauled for the 2018 model year, so of course it was time to bring them both together to see which one is the better car. Starting with the Camry, Toyota is just going on a style rampage lately after getting a mandate from the CEO to stop making boring cars. Some of you might not like the Camry's new style, but you definitely can't call it boring anymore. The Accord, on the other hand, has gotten some comparisons to the Dodge Charger, which isn't a bad thing, but people in general seem to prefer the more toned-down style of the Accord and its new sportback design over the much louder Camry, but it's all a matter of personal taste. I think you guys can all agree that tech is really important, and both of these cars come with a ton of tech that makes them safer, more connected, and more convenient. All 2018 Camrys now come standard with Toyota's Safety Sense P, which includes stuff like collision mitigation with pedestrian detection, adaptive cruise control that works in stop-and-go traffic, lane departure alert with steering assist, and automatic high beams. Some other models are also available with blind spot monitoring and rear cross traffic alert, and a top-down parking camera. To contrast that, Accords come standard with Honda Sensing, which pretty much offers all the features that the Camry does. In terms of safety, the two cars are pretty equally matched. The Accord's adaptive cruise control, however, is much smoother to use and feels more intuitive. The Camry system just leaves too much space between you and the car in front, even on its least sensitive setting, and cars just end up cutting in, and then it slams on the brakes, making the whole thing a little bit too jerky. The Accord seems to brake and accelerate much more evenly. Both cars are also available with features like wireless charging and a head-up display, although Honda has a few things that the Camry doesn't. The Accord comes with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, ventilated seats, NFC communication, a heated steering wheel, and mobile hotspot capability. I also prefer Honda's new infotainment system over the Camry. The graphics are nicer, the menus are more user-friendly, and it's just more intuitive to use. The Camry system is just a little bit more confusing, but it's still a big improvement from before. We should also mention that with 16.7 cubic feet, the Accord has a slightly bigger trunk than the Camry, which has 15.1 cubic feet. Both the Accord and the Camry are trying to be a lot more upscale than they used to be, and that's really reflected inside the cabin. We're in the Accord now, and while it doesn't take too many risks with design, the materials used are really nice and everything makes a lot of sense. So it might not be as expressive as the Camry's interior, but in general, it just seems to be more thought out and has a higher attention to detail. So the Camry takes a lot more risks with its interior design. Just look at this really cool red leather interior and this neat asymmetrical dash design. So it definitely looks a lot cooler than what the Accord has, but it's still not as cohesive a package. Driving the Camry around, it's really easy to be impressed, and strangely enough, Toyota actually made me track the Camry a couple days ago, and at first I was really confused because I was just thinking, are they trying to embarrass themselves? And they made me put on a helmet and everything. But I very quickly realized that they wouldn't have made me do that unless they had something to prove, and what they were trying to prove was that the Camry isn't a sloppy, boring mess to drive anymore, and I think they've succeeded. So the Camry is obviously a family sedan, and it's not the kind of car that'll really excite you with its amazing driving dynamics, but the Camry drives really decently. I was very surprised by the steering, which has a nice heavy weight to it, and it's quite responsive and it doesn't really feel that numb. Toyota actually did a lot of work with the suspension too, so it's a lot stiffer than it used to be, which means it feels more confident and stable in a corner, which is really nice. So we're in a 4-cylinder Camry right now, and it's pretty punchy, but surprisingly Toyota still offers the option of a V6, which the Accord just doesn't offer anymore. I don't think too many people are going to go for the V6 though, because the 4-cylinder is pretty punchy as it is, but I still respect Toyota for giving us that option. The 3.5-liter V6 makes 301 horsepower and 267 pound-feet of torque, and is hooked up to a smooth 8-speed transmission. The base engine is a 2.5-liter 4-cylinder model, and that's interesting because it's not turbocharged, yet it still feels pretty alive with 203 horsepower and 187 pound-feet of torque. With both engines, passing someone or getting up to highway speeds is no issue at all. Neither was that much fun to drive on the track, and the 4-cylinder is really noisy, but let's be real, if you're going that ham on a Camry, you have other rage issues to deal with. So the way the Honda Accord drives isn't actually that different from how the Camry operates, and I know historically the Accord has been the better driver of the two, but with this generation, the differences just aren't that stark. I don't really have any big complaints about how either sedan drives. They're both really good at what they do, which is just operating in the background and being smooth and dependable and pretty predictable, and that's what people shopping in this segment really want. The steering in the Accord has a nice heavy weight to it. It feels responsive and not that numb. They made some adjustments to the suspension, so it also feels a little bit better in a corner, and it just drives really decently, and none of that should come as a surprise. The Honda also gets 2 engine options, although unlike the Camry, it no longer comes with a V6. The base 1.5-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, which gets a CVT or a 6-speed manual, outputs 192 horsepower and 192 pound-feet of torque, which is more than the previous model. The upgraded 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder, which is actually a detuned version of the one in the Honda Civic Type R, and gets paired to a new 10-speed transmission, outputs 252 horsepower and 273 pound-feet of torque. The 4-cylinder Camry LE has a fuel economy rating of 28 mpg in the city, 39 on the highway, and 32 combined, which is slightly worse than the 1.5-liter CVT-equipped Honda Accord's 30, 38, and 33 mpg ratings. And what about pricing? Pricing has gone up a little bit from last year, but Honda packs the new Accord with more standard features, which helps justify the increase. Pricing for the new Accord starts at $24,445 and tops out at just over $36,000, while the Camry starts a little bit higher at just over $24,000 and tops out at just under $36,000. It is harder than ever to pick a winner between these two cars because they're just so good at what they do. They both drive really decently, have a ton of really useful technology, and they're both more upscale than they used to be. But I think the Honda Accord is just a little bit smarter, a little bit more user-friendly, and in general just offers a more complete package. Add in the fact that I think its styling will age a little bit more gracefully than the Camrys, and I think it is easily the best car in this segment.